back to the Gridiron Expert. We're continuing our Big 12 football predictions today, and our next team was one of the biggest surprises in all of college football last year, and with a favorable schedule and tons of talent returning on both sides of the ball, will once again be a threat in the Big 12. They are the Iowa State Cyclones. People always say that new coaches hit their strides around year 3 or year 4. That is certainly not the case for Matt Campbell. In 2016, his Cyclones team went 3-9, but in 2017, just year 2 with the Cyclones, Campbell got his team to an 8-5 record, including a thrilling win over Memphis in the Liberty Bowl and wins over number 3 Oklahoma and number 4 TCU that saw Iowa State rise to as high as number 14 in the rankings. So it was a thrilling season for the Cyclones, who won their first bowl game since 2009, made their first bowl appearance since 2012, and all the credit in the world to Matt Campbell and what he has done with the Cyclones team. And once again, they will be major Big 12 contenders this year, but they will not be slept on this year, much like they were last year. I don't think many people saw Iowa State coming last year. Surprised a lot of people, certainly surprised me. All the credit in the world to them. They returned 6 starters on offense and 6 starters on the defensive side of the ball. Offense going to be led by quarterback Kyle Kempt, whose first career start at Iowa State came on the road to Oklahoma, which they won 38-31, who were number 3 at the time. And that was one of the biggest upsets in all of college football last year. They have David Montgomery at the running back position, who rushed for over 1,100 yards last year. They do lose star wide receiver in Allen Lazard. That's a huge loss for this Iowa State offense, but they return wide receiver Hakeem Butler, who was the number 2 leading wide receiver right behind Lazard, and they return 3 offensive linemen. Huge for Kempt and huge for David Montgomery. So if this Iowa State offense can stay healthy, they once again will be extremely potent. On defense, 6 returning starters as well. Marcel Spears was the number 2 tackler on the team behind Joel Lanning, obviously a fan favorite among Cyclone fans and one of the better players on Iowa State team last year. They also have Willie Harver at the linebacking position, so Marcel Spears and Willie Harver tag teaming at the linebacking core, very dominant there. They have Ray Lima and Jaquan Bailey leading this defensive line for the Cyclones, going to be very solid there as well. And then Brian Peavy and DeAndre Payne are going to be the leaders in the secondary. So they have 2 returning starters. They have 6 returning starters total, 2 in each category on the defensive side of the ball, linebackers, defensive line, and secondary. And last year, the defense just allowed 20.9 points per game. So it was a dominant defense last year and will be as dominant, if not better, in the 2018 season. So hopefully Iowa State will continue the success that they had last year. They ended the year on a sour note, though. They were number 14 after that TCU win and then lost 3 of their last 4 games by a combined 12 points. Those losses coming to West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State. Just 12 points combined on those 3 games. And had they won 1 of those or 2 of those or even all of them, they certainly would have been playing for maybe a Big 12 championship. But Matt Campbell, phenomenal job, and I expect the success to continue this year into 2018. But obviously going to kick things off with a win over South Dakota State. Shouldn't be much of an issue there. Always good to see how your team's looking in week 1 against a weaker opponent and fix any issues you have before you go into a bigger game in week 2 on the road at Iowa. And as we know, last year, one of the better games of the entire season last year, Iowa versus Iowa State, that game being played at Iowa State, and the Cyclones losing 44-41 in overtime to a solid Hawkeyes team. I think they're going to lose once again to Iowa this season. Kinnick Stadium, as we all know, one of the toughest places to play in the entire nation. Doesn't matter, more so at night. A very difficult place to play at night, but even during the day is extremely difficult. They have Nathan Stanley at the quarterback position, who played last year, put up some solid numbers. Nick Easley and Noah Fant, one of the better tight ends in all of college football. They have a very, very strong secondary and defensive line, this Iowa team does on the defensive side of the ball. 7 starters on offense, 6 on defense. So with it being on the road and with this Iowa team probably being a little bit better this year than I think they were last year, probably Wisconsin's biggest threat in their division in the Big Ten, I'm going to give Iowa State a loss to the Hawkeyes. It wouldn't surprise me if they can go on the road and get the win, but right now I'm going to give them a loss there. And then Oklahoma back at home. You've got, last year Iowa State beat an Oklahoma team that was better last year than they're going to be this year. And that game was on the road. Oklahoma had Baker Mayfield. They were at home. They were number 3 in the nation, had everything going for them, and Iowa State came in there and absolutely deserved to win that game. It was one of their better performances of the entire season by far. I'm going to give them a loss to the Sooners this year for a number of reasons. Yes, it is at home, and as I've said before, Iowa State is an extremely difficult place to play. But Oklahoma, I still think, probably the top dog in the Big 12. Yes, they lose Baker Mayfield, but return 6 stars on offense, return 6 stars on defense. Kyler Murray will come in, should come in as the starting quarterback, another dual-threat quarterback for the Sooners. Should be able to take Baker Mayfield's place fairly well there because he's had playing experience at Texas A&M. And a little bit at Oklahoma. And then you've got the revenge factor for the Sooners after getting beat at home last year and like I said, one of the biggest upsets of the season. They're going to want to try to come back and get revenge on the Cyclones. Now, I think they will. I think they're going to come on the road and get a big win over Iowa State to kick off Big 12 play. Iowa State bounces back with a win over Akron, so they're 2-2 going into the TCU game. And last year, another team that Iowa State beat. TCU was number 4 in the nation, looking really good, had a very potent offense, and then Iowa State held them to just 7 points. TCU could not get anything going in the red zone. Iowa State's defense did a phenomenal job that game, holding them to 7 points and beating the number 4 team in the country. And this game being at TCU, so once again, another revenge factor for the Horned Frogs to try to get revenge over the Cyclones. TCU, like Oklahoma, losing their star quarterback, Baker Mayfield for the Sooners, Kenny Hill for the Horned Frogs, but they still have a dominant offense with Darius Anderson, Kavontae Turpin. My biggest question, though, is on the offensive line for the Horned Frogs. If Iowa State can exploit that weakness for TCU on the offensive line and make life very difficult for Sean Robinson, the new quarterback, then maybe they can go on the road and get a win over TCU. That's extremely possible. But TCU has probably one of the better defenses, if not the best defense in the Big 12, and I think they will be able to shut down a very solid passing game by Kyle Kempt. And if they take that away, I think they'll be able to shut down David Montgomery on the ground. I think TCU gets a win at home. And then last year's game against Oklahoma State was an absolute thriller. Iowa State this time on the end trying to seek revenge, losing to the Cowboys in devastating fashion, 49-42, throwing an interception on 2nd and goal towards the end of the game that could have potentially tied the game against the Cowboys. And that was with a very solid Cowboys team last year with Mason Rudolph and James Washington, and a team that could have made the college football playoff had they not slipped up a couple times last season. This game on the road, and yes, they do lose some offensive production. And you know, you got to replace your star quarterback, but you've got Drew Brown or you've got Taylor Cornelius. They have a solid running back like Iowa State and Justice Hill, so this could be a battle of the running backs more so than it is the quarterbacks, as we always discuss. You got David Montgomery versus going up against Justice Hill. This is an Oklahoma State team, though, led by Mike Gundy, that I think is going to take a little bit of a step back, but not a horrible step back. He's still an offensive guru, going to get the offense going. The defense, by this point in October, will have things going, and I think Iowa State does lose a game to the Cowboys on the road. Now, I know what you're thinking. They're 2-4 going about midway through the season. I'm probably going to predict them to go 2-10 again, right? Well, let's look at the rest of the schedule. So you got West Virginia here, and I think Iowa State gets a huge win over the Mountaineers. And yes, I love this West Virginia offense. I've praised West Virginia since the offseason began, really, with Will Grier and that solid wide receiving core and the type of team they're going to have. That Dana Holgorsen defense that he has slowly built up with the Mountaineers, a dark horse candidate, in my opinion, for the Big 12 championship, but it's at home. Iowa State's a hungry team. They are a good team. They are obviously better than this 2-4 record, but obviously they have a tough slate to open up the year. I think they're going to be hungry. It's at home. I think the defense buckles down, shuts down, or is able to take care of Will Grier and that wide receiving core, and the offense really starts to pick things up and gets a huge win over the Mountaineers. I think they will be able to do that this season. A huge win for the Cyclones and a much-needed one. Going into the bye week, they're high. They've got they're off of a win. They get a week of rest, and they get Texas Tech at home. And a Texas Tech team that this entire season is going to be about keeping Cliff Kingsbury's job in Lubbock. They can't afford to lose games they shouldn't lose. They can't afford to get blown out in many games. I mean, some respectable games that maybe they deserve to be blown out in. But this is a year that Cliff Kingsbury doesn't have time to waste and really has to take some steps forward. Unfortunately, he's going to get a loss to Iowa State. This is a Texas Tech team that is always going to have a potent offense. Under Cliff Kingsbury, has 10 returning starters on the defensive side of the ball. But if you remember last year, Iowa State went on the road to Texas Tech and just annihilated the Red Raiders. I believe it was 31-13. So, that was with the Texas Tech team that was, maybe the same, maybe if not a little bit better than the team they're going to have this year. So with this game being played at Iowa State and the Cyclones having a week of rest, I think Kyle Kempt and his offense does a great job against the Texas Tech defense that will be improved, but not improved enough to defeat the Cyclones. Then on the road at Kansas, obviously another win here for the Cyclones. Obviously a very solid team. Kansas should improve a little bit, I would think, in David Beaty's 4th year, but not enough to get to a bowl game, not enough to once again compete against some of the better teams in the Big 12, Iowa State being one of them. They get a win over the Jayhawks. So look at that. They got 3 straight victories here. I'm going to make it 4 straight victories with a win over Baylor. Now, Baylor, a team that should improve this season after going 1-11 last season. It was a very disappointing season for Matt Rhule in his first year down in Waco. But Baylor with 17 returning starters is not a team that Iowa State can afford to sleep on and overlook, especially with Texas right after that, a potential for a huge upset on the road. But I think Iowa State's defense is going to be able to shut down Charlie Brewer. They've got Jalen Hurd down at the wide receiver position, the transfer from Tennessee. That's a huge get for Baylor. But the Baylor offense and the Baylor team in general are still having to adapt to Matt Rhule's philosophy and his scheme. They will improve from that 1-11 record, but not enough to come on the road and get a win over the Cyclones. And then on the road at Texas, could this be the game that it would be like the Oklahoma game last year for Iowa State, going on the road against a potential top 10 team, top 15 team, and defeating a very solid team in Texas? I'm not going to give them the win over the Longhorns. I think that Texas is just too complete on both sides of the ball. They've got an extremely potent offense led by Tom Herman at the head coaching position. Obviously, he's the head coach there, an offensive guru. We've seen what he did at Houston. He bring that over to Texas. A disappointing year last year for the Longhorns, but something to build on, especially with a lot of momentum after that bowl win over Missouri. This is a Texas team that I truly believe could make the Big 12 championship game, could compete against Oklahoma for the #1 spot in the Big 12. And I'm going to give Iowa State a loss to a Texas team. I think the key in this game for Texas is going to be the defense. And I think, obviously, if Iowa State wants to go on the road and defeat the Longhorns, they're going to have to shut down a potent Texas offense. Like I said, I think Texas is very complete on both sides of the ball. It would take a heck of a performance, much like they had against Oklahoma last year. It's not out of the question, but I'm going to give the edge to the Longhorns here. But they close out the year with a win over Kansas State. And if you remember last year's game against Kansas State for Iowa State was at Kansas State. Iowa State led the entire game until Kansas State drove all the way down there and scored a touchdown as time expired. I believe they won that game 20-19. So obviously a very disappointing loss, a very heartbreaking loss for the Cyclones to close out the year. Last year gave them a 7-5 record, prevented them from having an 8-win regular season. It was a thrilling game at that. Iowa State, revenge on their mind, though. It's at home. It's in the season finale. They want to avenge that loss that they had last year in such devastating fashion. I like this Kansas State team a lot. I still have a lot of questions on that defensive side of the ball, little concerns for that. And with the Kansas State defense, I think has some questions going up against a very potent Iowa State offense with a great 1-2 punch in Kempton Montgomery and obviously a top wide receiver in Hakeem Butler. I'm going to give the edge to the Cyclones there, especially to close out the year on a very, very strong note. And if you look, after starting off 2-4, Iowa State wins, 5 of their last 6 games. So they're going to have them finishing 7-5 on the year, winning 5 of their last 6 games to close out the year. And I think that's extremely possible. I think Iowa State, the way the schedule sets up, the second half of the schedule is much more beneficial to the Cyclones than the first. I mean, if you look at the first half, a tough Iowa team, Oklahoma, TCU, and Oklahoma State, 3 of those games on the road, it's not an easy schedule. But then things lighten up a little bit. You get Texas Tech after a bye week. You get Kansas. You get a Baylor team that's still trying to improve. I think the second half of the schedule really, really benefits this Cyclones team. I think Matt Campbell has done a phenomenal job. He's just now entering year 3. He's building something here at Iowa State. I think a 7-5 record for the second straight year was very respectable. Maybe they get their second straight 8-win year if they can win their bowl game. But obviously, this is something to get excited about as Cyclone fans to see what Matt Campbell is building towards the future. And back-to-back 7-5 years, especially after not making a bowl game since 2012 prior to last year, something to get very excited about and something to really look forward to in the years to come. So I cannot wait to see what Iowa State does this year, and certainly better than that 2-10 record that I predicted last year. So as always, please go check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert, on Instagram at The Gridiron Expert, and always here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.